in a cult, um, in any group actually, that is in group, out group, all you have to do is throw a label on the out group
Mm-hmm.
and it becomes a thought stopping cliche.
Yes.
Oh, he's just a homophobe. Oh, that's just a libtard,
Yeah.
right? These labels are thought stopping cliches because they stop thinking, because the person goes, oh, now I know everything
Here's
I
all
need
that
to know.
baggage. I'm going to make all the assumptions about this person because
That's
that
right.
language. You could even say, oh, they're just a flat earther. Who cares what they think about anything?
Exactly.
One of the things I like to think about and something that I've been working on is how do you communicate with somebody who who is so categorized in that way. So like if I'm trying to have a conversation with somebody who is a Scientologist and I don't want to dismiss them as a
Mm-hmm.
Scientologist and maybe I want to talk to them about like who they are, why they are, like why do you believe what you believe? How do you
Yeah.
navigate that conversation?
Well, the best method I've found for it is street epistemology. And that's just a label
Hmm.
for a way of having an inquisitive conversation with somebody where you truly are curious about their headspace, about their beliefs and ideas, and you want to make them a little curious about their
Why do
ideas
you
and
think
beliefs,
this? Yeah.
you
And
know?
yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
great. It's a good method to use, but it requires getting into a headspace, for at least as far as I'm concerned. It requires getting into a place where you can kind of be value neutral for a little while and turn the judgments off
Yep.
and just really listen. It's active listening. If it's not done that way, it's not going to get the positive result you could get with it, which
Yep.
is they're thinking about their beliefs, and they're telling you and informing you about where those beliefs come from or why they're important to that person, and therefore you will understand that person so much better at the end of the conversation.
Yep.
Maybe if they're a Scientologist, you find out, well, what was it about Scientology that interested you so much in the first place?
Yep.
Not now, but in the first place. What
Yeah.
got you, and you'll find the hook. You'll see right away what the emotional, connection was for them to get hooked into it. Maybe they won't even see it, but they'll tell you all about it. It's really quite interesting to do if you can refrain from
Yeah.
throwing a bunch of judgment on them while they're doing it. That's the trick.
Yeah, well, and Alex makes a good point and says the Scientologist has probably already dismissed your being an outsider. Maybe, but why does that matter?
Exactly.
And
Yes, thank you. That's right. It doesn't
yeah,
matter.
you
You can
what
still make some progress.
you're not the one trying to make them change. What you're doing is trying to understand them, and when you start trying to understand somebody and they pick up on that, as long as there's you have to have a degree of earnestness. You have to be earnest. If you're not being earnest, people will pick up on that, they'll shut down, they'll get defensive.
That's
And
right.
so, if you earnestly ask somebody a question, even if you don't like that person, and you're able to compartmentalize like your dislike or disdain for their particularly belief and try to understand who they are and why they're that way, because it's irrelevant about whether or not you like them, and it's irrelevant about whether they like you. What matters is that if you can convince them that you're interested in what they have to say, regardless of those things, you'd be amazed at how easy it is to make people talk about themselves.
That's right. That's exactly right. It's this old phrase, right? There is no one I can't learn from.
Yes.
Right. And it's that attitude that is the winning attitude when it comes to interrogating or inquiring about somebody else's beliefs, because you got to understand that when you're talking to somebody about belief or ideas that they have of that nature, you are not just talking about objective, sort of balls in the air,
Yep.
that don't mean anything. You're really getting down into who this person sees themselves as,
Yep.
their identity, right? Like who and what they are. And belief is right up against that sort
Yes.
of pillar of ego and,
Yeah.
you know, and sense of self. And so it's not just a casual conversation when you're talking about deep-seated beliefs, and people who brush it off or treat it as though it's no big deal or ha 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 don't really understand the nature of what they're dealing with. You know, you're digging into the radioactive core of the person's personality, you
Well, it's
know.
understanding why
And
people get so dismissive when you confront their beliefs, or why people get so
yeah,
aggressive, or why people get so angry. And the thing is that if you're the one engaging the conversation, whether it's for entertainment, whether it's because it's a show we're doing, whether it's whatever's going on, it takes time, and it takes resolve, and it takes like a degree of like persistence to be like, no, I'm not here to judge you, I'm not here to argue with you, I'm here to understand what the fuck are you talking about.
exactly. And you'll find here's the fun part. The funnest part about this is it is only through that process that you can change their mind.
Well, the best part about that, in my
You know?
opinion, is that you don't even change their mind. They change their
Well,
own
you
mind.
never do. Yeah.
Well, they do it.
You never do.
Because all
They
you're
are always
doing
the one.
is all you're doing is laying the track. You're just being like, "Hey, but have you considered?" And then even if they don't, even if they shut you down right away, if they remember you as a positive experience, and they have a better, or even if they remember you as a negative experience, you'd be amazed at what someone will just wrap their brain around and just run with all on their own. One little
right.
idea, one little poke, and it's just like, what?
That's right.
This makes me
Well,
uncomfortable.
and that would be reflective of somebody who is already approaching the fence.
Yes.
Maybe they're not on the fence, but they're looking at it. It's
Yeah.
there, you
They're
know.
acknowledging
And
that
they're
there
like,
is in
huh,
fact a fence.
yeah. What's on the other side of this fence, right? And that kind of thing could be going on with them, and they're never going to even hint to you that that's going on with them, because that
Right.
would be a moral outrage for them. They can't express to somebody else a loss of their faith, right? Or that they're having a faith crisis or something. So
Right.
they're not going to necessarily let you in on everything that's going on with them. Doesn't mean you can't be an effective seed planter. And that's, since we're talking about this, you know, strategically speaking, it is about seed planting also, right? So you can do the street epistemology and pull their kind of belief system apart with them and see how that goes.
Yeah.
Or you could try to engage in getting one idea, one fact across, but you got to do it in such a way that you're not turning on their defense, right? Their fight or flight. That people will not inflow information. We know enough neuroscience now to know that, you know, when this part shut down because the person feels that they're in danger or threatened, that's not the time that you're going to be having a rational debate, you know.
Yeah, I think we're sort of seeing that a lot with like the political sphere in America right now. Like there's an opportunity, there's a two-way opportunity where things are about to get weird and very bad for a lot of people. And it's going to get very bad for a lot of people who voted this way thinking it would not be bad for them. And there's people that are going to be like, oh, well, don't say I told you so. And people are going to be like, no, you absolutely tell those people I told you so. And then it's just like, well, it's a little bit about nuance, isn't it? You can say I told you so, but maybe the way you say I told you so matters.
Well, I'll say that I want anybody who says that to remember how they felt the last time somebody told them, I told you so.
Listen, sometimes you need to feel bad.
Hey, I get it. And they already feel bad.
Yeah, they're already there. So
right? What I told you so is about retribution. That's what that's about.
Yes,
right? And that's not part of this picture if you're talking about getting people out of an extremist headspace.
Yeah, if you want to if they're actually in that MAGA group, that's not gonna get anybody out of it. I do think that there is a time and place for like kind of like the yelly shouty man who's like telling everybody you're dumb, you're wrong, you're stupid, but I don't think that is a good like one-to-one conversation. I think that's an okay way of presenting an idea, but not a good way to approach an individual.
No, that's exactly. I think that's more of, stand-up comic material or something, right? It's like, if you want a constructive venue where people can ridicule and laugh and it's all in good fun, and yet you can still walk away with some seed planting done.
Yeah.
Comedy is the way to go, right? And that's where it's at. I wish I was funnier so I could do that, because I'm instead of just being so funny looking. It would be I know. But it would be fun to be able to.
Lovely.
Well, thank you. Anyway, it'd be fun to be able to do that, because, but facts, of course, are the way, right? And but you got to be able to deliver them, and you got to know that the delivery system is really kind of almost more important than the facts sometimes. As far as if you bungle the delivery, it doesn't matter how good your facts are.
Yeah,
it just doesn't matter.
Yeah,
because we're not factual creatures who feel. We are feeling creatures who also happen to have the ability to reason out a few things.
Yeah.
And if you think about us that way, you will understand us as people, as human beings, right? And if you don't, you will be constantly frustrated and upset with people because they don't act the way you think they should or something.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things is you have to understand that you're not acting that way either.
Exactly. You got to own all your own biases and stuff. It's all challenging, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's such
and these types of conversations that we're talking about having and speculating on aren't for everybody. Not everybody is able to or has the wherewithal or even the energy. And it's important to step back. And if it's not a space that you can be in, you're better off not in the space. Like if there's a Scientologist in your life and you've been talking to them for years and you're just done and exhausted and they're horrible to you for not being a Scientologist or whatever it may be, LGBTQ, whatever it is, step back, stop engaging. Right. And sometimes even just that ends up being a more positive influence than you realize because you're done. Sometimes just walking away. Yeah.
Well, exactly. Because what you do is spatially, if you imagine this, right, you create a vacuum.
Yep.
And nature abhors a vacuum, right? So you could suck them right back into, well, you're not talking to me anymore. Oh, well, and here you're having a conversation again.
Right, surprise, surprise. Oh my, where have you been? We haven't been talking. And it's like, I got tired of talking to you. And then you can have an earnest conversation and you can bring up how you feel about something and say, listen, it's not that I don't like you. Or maybe it is that, actually, you know what? I don't like you. I'm tired of this. And then maybe they'll be willing to change. I don't know.
Maybe. I will say that since we're talking about talking to cult members and extremists and stuff, a rule of thumb here is do not ever lie to them.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean ever.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean you have to sit there and tell them the entire truth of what's on your mind.
Yep.
But don't lie, because if you lie and they catch you, you're dead to them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It only takes one.
It poisons everything you've ever said.
Just don't even do it, right? Not for any reason. You would never say, oh, I'm so fascinated by Dianetics. Maybe I want to go do that weekend seminar. Could you tell me about it? If that's your line to get them opening up and talking to you, get a new line. Because if you're not thinking about going and doing the seminar, don't say you are, right? Don't, you don't want to do stuff like that.
I have this thing where I'm just like, listen, people lie. I don't get irritated at people lying. I get irritated at people lying poorly. If you're going to lie, have some goddamn self-respect.
Well, there is that. The other thing is, of course, when you're talking to cult members like Scientologists, they're going to want to proselytize to you.
Yes.
So the other thing is, if you're going to have a discussion with them about beliefs or about their ideas or something, you need to make sure that it's clear that you're having a discussion, that you're not interested in being proselytized to. This is a personal conversation between you, and setting that early is very important, because otherwise they're thinking with a whole different agenda that they're not telling you about.
Yeah.
And you're not going to make headway with them if they're operating on some other agenda of trying to get you into their cult. And that's a tricky one.